Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast. Using my sportscasting background, I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players to gain more insight on what makes this team go. As the Detroit Lions enter a new gritty era, we'll look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we preview the Detroit Lions season opening matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs, what we are expecting or maybe not expecting from each team, and we ponder the importance of this game as we get ready to kick off the NFL season.
Hi, everyone. This is Herman Moore, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
I'm joined by Coach Jerry Angers, named Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's also mentored numerous players at the college level and some all the way to the NFL. Good to have you here, Coach.
Great to be here on this beautiful sunny day, northern Michigan.
It is. It's a beautiful time of year, and it is finally here. We're talking about the start of the 2023 NFL season. Always fun for that first game. I remember a year ago, it was Buffalo and the Rams opening up last year, and all that excitement. And, you know, the Lions weren't playing in that game, but that game got me ready for the Lions season opener last year. And now we, the Detroit Lions, are that Thursday night opener. So let me ask you, does that change anything being the first game of the season, playing before everybody else, being the only game, knowing everybody's watching?
There's a lot of pressure on it, but, you listen to Dan Campbell and the players and stuff, and they know it's just one of 17 games. But it's huge. You got every eye in the country that's looking at the NFL is going to watch that game. I mean, you got the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champs. You got Patrick Mahomes. You're in probably the most exciting stadium in the country for the NFL. I mean, the pressure that's on everybody to succeed in that is huge. And we have the hype train. And so there's a lot of people on it. There's a lot of people drinking that blue Kool-Aid across the country. And it's going to be magical to watch.
Yeah, I remember watching, again, Buffalo and LA last year. And even though I wasn't vested in either team, I was watching the game. And so that tells you a lot of people are going to watch this game. And a lot of people are going to leave this game with opinions about each of these teams. Overreaction or not, they're going to have opinions. I mean, Buffalo was suddenly the team to beat in the NFL last year after that opening game.
Totally agreeing with you on that one.
As we get into this matchup, Kansas City, Detroit, let's briefly look at how Kansas City's different than last year, all right? In their draft, they took a defensive end from Kansas State in the first round. Second round, they took a wide receiver from SMU. That was Rashee Rice. And I watched him play in his game against Maryland, and he was the offensive weapon for SMU. They went offensive line and safety after that. Some other notable changes. Orlando Brown's gone at left tackle. They brought over Donovan Smith from Tampa and Jawan Taylor from Jacksonville for the offensive line. And linebacker Frank Clark was released, and he went over to Denver. Let's talk, though, what we expect out of Kansas City coming into this game. I think the one big thing we expect is that Chris Jones does not look like he's going to be on the field. He's a holdout. He hasn't even been in the building yet. So even if he did report for kickoff, I mean, it's really doubtful he'd suit up because players, even if they're exercising away from the team, they need time to get into the system, right?
No, there's no doubt. You got to get acclimated, but they are professionals. And, you've seen guys sign on a Monday and play on the following week in a limited role. He's scary good. We know that. Again, I know the Detroit Lions are hoping that he plays because they don't want anybody, when they go out and surprise and shock the world or whatever we're looking at, that they played a full roster. But it's a distraction for him. I don't ever worry about Kansas City Chiefs with Andy Reid as the head guy and Patrick Mahomes because they lost Hill right last year. I think they won the Super Bowl. And so, Andy Reid is always 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody. And, he's been planning for all of this and he will have his team ready to get through this game without those guys. And the new additions are going to only reap the benefits from all the experience they have around them and all the extra games that they played last year. So those new guys that are in there are definitely going to be up to speed, come Thursday night.
Well, and even some of the guys they got recently. Now, one of them who might not be out there, we're not sure, is Kadarius Toney. He's still dealing with an injury. The team is hopeful the wide receiver will be able to play in the opener. We know that Travis Kelce is still the top target for Patrick Mahomes, but the wide receivers, it's probably going to be Sky Moore, the Western Michigan guy, getting a lot of looks. See if he has had growth entering his second season. They still have Marquez Valdez-Scantling as a wide receiver threat as well. And then you've got Isaiah Pacheco, who had a very surprising first year for them, contributed way beyond his draft status. And if that guy even improves a little bit from last season, they're going to have a really good offense again.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are the things that take the pressure off of Mahomes and Kelce and the wide receivers and stuff when you got a running back that can do what he did last year. And that's kind of one of the things you have to look into when you're looking at the Chiefs. And of course, Patrick Mahomes is gonna, he's gonna be a magician somewhere. He's gonna do something crazy, and we know that's gonna happen. We just have to withstand that pressure. And if you can stop the run in that situation and put it in his hands and make him throw the ball. I mean, he still has weapons because, again, Andy Reid is going to have a game plan to make whatever weapon they have look like an unbelievable football player.
Well, you even said it. You expect those young guys to contribute because they had a lot of young contributions last year during that Super Bowl run, and Isaiah Pacheco is a perfect example of that. And the thing you did mention was the Chris Jones being the distraction thing. You said Andy Reid's good at, keeping people from being distracted. Lesser teams would probably be more affected by that as a distraction. But if he's not in there, that will be something they do miss on the interior defensive line.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think that's one of the things, again, that's one of your leaders. That's a guy that is going to put pressure on. That's a guy. I mean, he does everything. He can stop the run. He can rush the passer. I mean, the guy's a really good football player. If not, I shouldn't say really good, great football player. And if he's not the best, he's only one behind Aaron Donald. So, that's a big intangible, big thing. You have to scheme because you normally could play base defense and things like that with him. Now you have to scheme to free somebody else up or one of the younger guys to free up and make some splash plays like he would make during that game.
For sure. And I guess one other thing I have that I am expecting out of Kansas City is I'm expecting Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champ, to show up and play in this game. I'm not expecting it to be a 31-10 game where they get destroyed by the other team. The Rams came out last year and they failed to impress in many aspects of that season opener. I don't think Kansas City is going to be in that position.
No, I agree. I mean, again, Andy Reid won't allow it. Patrick Mahomes won't allow it. Kelce won't allow it. I mean, that's the thing is, they want to repeat. How many times when was the last time that happened? The big thing for the Lions in that situation, we talk about predictions and things like that. But the biggest thing in this case is there's going to be the distraction with them raising the banner. I think they're getting their rings. The place is going to be electric. It's the first game of the year, and the Lions have to go in, the blue collar mentality. That Ford Motor Company type, grab your lunchbox and let's go to work and get after Kansas City early and try to hit them in the mouth and shock them a little bit and then withstand what they come back with. And that's what I see.
Well, so we talked about what we're kind of expecting out of Kansas City, a team that might rely on some young players, a team that's not going to allow itself to be distracted, and a team that's going to come out, and we expect them to be firing on all cylinders. We expect them to be looking to be that not only defending Super Bowl champ, but that Super Bowl champ who is hoping and trying to repeat. So what are we expecting out of the Detroit Lions coming into this game?
Well, I think you've seen by the way they drafted. Again, we have St. Brown back, but we don't have Williams. Those are things that, the over the top ball. Can we stretch them out? Can we throw the top and score on them? We drafted a pretty good running back that has great hands, and we took that Montgomery guy from the Bears, who another one that's got great hands. You and I watched that. Practice together. We went down and those little flare passes and stuff to the running backs out of the backfield is huge. We look at Laporta, that's all we talk about, but we also have Mitchell. I think there's some things that, and I think we have one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. He's not Andy Reid, but he's gonna have some things for the Kansas City Chiefs that they're gonna have to worry about. So it'll be interesting. We look at our offense the last, that 8-2 run. We've added players to make that offense better, which is scary. And again, if you want to talk defense, we've added players to a defense that played well over those last 2 games. That could be really scary. But we are looking at young guys that are going to have to lead, by example, some young guys that are going to have to make plays, and some young guys that cannot fall into the atmosphere, but just to walk out and say, another football game, 1 of 17, let's go get it.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with one of the points I wanted to make on this is we have a lot of new characters with this cast. This team's got some new pieces. We have 2 new starting running backs replacing the 2 we had. We have a new tight end, a new wide receiver. So we have a defense. The secondary has many new faces on. 3 out of the 5 guys in the back there are new to the team. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Cam Sutton, and Brian Branch are all new characters to this group. Now, there's the good and the bad with that, right? The team needs time to gel, but all these guys aren't rookies. You've got guys that were playing in the Super Bowl last year who are on this team. CJ Gardner-Johnson, perfect example. He played against Mahomes. They both played in the last game of the season against each other. So you've got the leadership that comes from those guys that will help with the rookies, but I think it's going to take time for some things to gel. I'm going to say that in this first game, everything's not going to be perfect. Right. I think that's one thing I expect of the Lions is it will not be perfection, and that's okay. And I think you have to keep that in perspective. But that being said, I do think we're going to see a better defense than we did in the season opener last year.
There's no doubt about that. If you're going to roll that one, how about, here's the thing I look at too, Matt, when you're talking about the defense and things like that. We kept a whole lot of rush DNs. We kept athletes. We were looking, oh my God, is Houston going to get cut? Oh my God, are they going to get traded? Are they going to do that? They kept these guys for a reason. A guy that they can put their hand in the dirt, a guy that they can stand up. That means I think Aaron Glenn has something planned out, and he's trying to work on what is going to be successful for this all 17 games. And you go back to it. Is this a huge game for the Lions? Sure, it's a huge game for the Lions. It's a huge game for the Chiefs. It's the first one. You always want to start 1-0, but then you got to look back at going into the next week. You want to be 1-0 again. So, you can take with it. We're all excited about it. We want to see it. We want to see how those young guys gel. We want to see what Gardner-Johnson does for that defense. I mean, that is huge because he experienced it from the other side. And he's got some young guys in front of him, some young guys next to him. You got Trace Walker too. We keep forgetting about him. We're talking about Branch. Trace looks like he's not going to start because Brian Branch has outplayed him. Well, Trace Walker is a pretty good football player. So with a lot of leadership and the ability to walk on the field, the ability to be on the sidelines to help coach up Branch.
It also wouldn't surprise me if you saw the Lions run a dime defense with CJ Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch, and Tracy Walker all on the field at the same time.
And you got Gardner out there coaching up on what they have to do to stop Mahomes and the rest of that crew. So that's going to be exciting. We go into that. That's what we're looking at. That first game, all the things we can measure and all the things we can work on for week 2 on that.
And even though there is that cast of new characters, there's a lot of new people coming in. We got to remember, there's a lot of guys that have returned. It's not like we went out in free agency and just tried to put a team together. So many of those depth pieces are guys that have been with the Lions last year, some the year before that. They've been building this up. And so you're going to see some of those guys who contributed last year maybe contribute even more this year. And if they were already in the system, there's not going to be as much of a transition. One thing that wouldn't shock me is if Barnes gets to start at linebacker next to Alex Anzalone, and then the draft pick, Jack Campbell, rotates in. Or if Campbell happens to get the start, I would see Barnes rotating in a lot because Barnes has grown so much this offseason that you don't have to put that pressure on Campbell right away in game 1 on the road against the defending Super Bowl champions.
No, true that. I agree. You're going to have packages too. They've been working on different things. So they're going to use Campbell's strength. They're going to use Barnes' strength. They're going to use McNeil's strength. They're going to use Houston's strength. And then you're going to have Hutch, who he's got all the strength.
Well, and then the other thing I think to know is, when the roster cuts were happening and all the moving parts were taking place, we noticed that Emmanuel Mosley came off the PUP. If they had put him on the PUP, he would not have been eligible to play the first 4 weeks. So while you could see him in this game, I don't think that's likely. I would be more likely expecting him 10 days later for that home opener against Seattle, giving them 10 more days of practice time. So I would expect that, which means you're going to see Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs out there at the cornerback positions. So those are a couple things I'm thinking on the defense there.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and again, that's one of those things that, you and I talked about. Him coming off the PUP is huge because that tells us he's going to be ready. And we don't have to have him sit. And, that's, again, it's all about the 17 game season. It's not about game one on Thursday night in front of all those people.
That being said, in game one, here's something else I'm expecting to see happen. I'm expecting the Lions to be creative, aggressive, and maybe even one trick play if the situation dictates it. And what I mean by that is they've got to be in a situation to do the play, and then they've got to be getting that right defensive look for it to happen. I mean, Coach Campbell's talked, I believe it was Coach Campbell who said this, was that they've had multiple fake punts or trick plays called if they got the right look on defense or on special teams. And oftentimes they didn't get the right look, so they didn't go for it or go forward with it or do it. But the Lions are one of the teams that have gambled the most in the last 2 years, be it trick plays or fourth down attempts. And I'm thinking Dan Campbell is going to show us that, yes, the roster's gotten better, but he is still the same type of coach. And I think he's going to throw something in there.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, even, Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid lets his guys call it that whirly burl thing that they ran last year. So, it's one of the things when I was thinking about, we were talking about this, I wrote down trick plays like 4 different times because I think it's going to be on both sides. But again, these are those games when everybody thinks that's going to happen, and then they do exactly the opposite. But again, those things only work when it's set up perfectly. And we talked about that last year with Sewell on that pass play. And again, they've been working on it. Those things are in somewhere, and they'll pull them out when they need them. But I totally agree with, I don't think Dan Campbell's going to come in and coach any different than he did last year. And again, I go, what you said, and I go back to last year after 1-6. He didn't change. This is me. This is our team. This is how we coach. This is how our staff works, and he's going to stay with it. I think they're gonna do what they're doing, and if the opportunity rises, we're gonna see it on both sides of the ball.
Exactly, and I think you said it perfect right there. If the opportunity arises, it's got to be the right situation. They're not going to call it just because they're not playing a video game. They're not playing Madden here. So the situation's got to call for it, and it's got to be well disguised. But it's going to be exciting because now, for the first time since the Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs, that last game in Lambeau for the Lions, the playbook is open again. It's not preseason football with very vanilla offenses. We're going to see stuff. But let me ask you, is there anything that might be unexpected by either team that we see in this game?
Well, again, I think we have to touch base on the trick plays. We have to touch base on a formation change. We have to touch base on personnel on the field. Those are the things that, we don't know what we're going to do. We don't know, are we going to see Gibbs and Montgomery on the field at the same time? Are we going to see Mitchell and Laporte on the field at the same time? And the same thing with Kansas City. What are they going to do offensively, to change things up? Is Kelsey going to line up as wideout? Is Kelsey going to be an H-back? Is Kelsey going to line up in the backfield? Are they going to run their shuffle pass? I think those are all things that people are waiting to see on that situation. And I think that's the thing you have to look at is both coaches will go out on the limb. Both coaches will go out on thin ice. Both coaches will do different things in different situations that people go, oh my God, that was crazy, or they're geniuses. So I think those are things we have to look at, throughout the game. But again, the main thing is it's game one, and it's not the Super Bowl. If it was the Super Bowl, then things are really going to be thrown out. Now we're going to say, oh my God, I know they're going to do a fake punt. Oh my God, I know they're going to try to block it. Oh my God, I know they're going to run reverse. Those things are going to happen during the Super Bowl. Those things are going to happen in a playoff game. This is week one. They're going to throw some stuff out there to keep everybody entertained. But we're going to see a really good football game, and of two great coaches And I know Andy Reid is a great coach. I think Dan Campbell's going to be a great coach if he's not already. And I think you're going to see these two teams come out and establish what they want to establish, what they need to work on for week 2, and see how they're, the young guys, the new draft picks and stuff, play in an atmosphere like this is going to be.
No, those are excellent points, especially the part of it's week 1, not week 17, 18, or the playoffs. So they're just putting stuff on tape. So people will be examining this tape all season long and trying to figure things out with the Lions. And you can add more plays throughout the season once you've mastered other plays. The other thing, I think there might be an unexpected takeaway from this game. And I'm going out on a limb here because we're going up against Patrick Mahomes, and he leads a very good offense. But I think some people might come away from this game a little bit surprised how competent the Detroit Lions defense looks compared to what they're expecting. Because, again, I'm not sure how many points the Lions will give up, but I don't think a lot of people have a lot of confidence in the Detroit Lions defense who are not inside the state of Michigan right now.
I think you're correct on that. And I think that's the thing is they address the backfield, the defensive backfield. They address the linebacker spot. They address the D-line spot. I mean, they've gotten faster, to contain a Patrick Mahomes, to contain a Kelsey. I mean, you got to contain those guys. You're not going to stop them. You have to contain them. You got to make sure they don't have any huge splash plays, big plays. And so I think you're right on that. I think Aaron Glenn has been working on that. I think they went out and took Branch. They went out and took Campbell earlier than people expected. Again, they took them when they wanted to take them because they wanted those guys that to fit into the system. And I think that's what we're going to see. And that's to be honest with you, that's the one thing I'm really looking forward to is watching these new guys, the young guys, the draft picks on defense, as well as the guys that we brought in from the free agent market. I can't wait to see them blend together. Is it going to be week 1? We don't know. We'll find out pretty soon. It could be week 4, week 5, but we will be better on defense.
Well, the next thing I want to talk about is something you've already started touching on, which is how much can we take away from a team's performance in this game? We know it's game 1, right? So keep that in perspective. This is only one game, and people love to overreact. The sky is falling or, we're out of this world. But keep this in perspective a minute. San Francisco lost to the Chicago Bears to open the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco was one quarterback away from potentially going to the Super Bowl. Chicago had the number 1 pick in the draft before trading out of it. So what can we take away from this one game?
What can we expect? What can we take away from it? It's those guys learning from their mistakes or learning from the success that we have in this game. We want to go out and show everybody that we are real. We have the naysayers out there, the ones that we laugh at on Twitter all the time that are looking for anything negative to say, because what's the name of the show? Not the Same Old Lions, so that they can say, hey, it's the same old Lions. And again, what you take away, when I coached, it was always in week 1, did we get better in week 2? And I think that's what the Lions are after right now. They're also looking at, are we still rolling like we were at the end of last year, but are we better than we were last year at the end of the season, week 17? Are we better week 1 this year? And I think those are the things that you can take away from this game. And that's the measuring tool. Are we or as good as we were last year in week 1 at week 1 this year from last year's last game? Those are the things that you look at. And if we're that good, we're going to have a really good season, and they're going to learn from it and get better from it.
Well, that's the thing. Every NFL team is a work in progress. You never want to be as good as you were in week 1 when you get to week 16 or 17. You want to be better and get better throughout the season. And I think if health doesn't become an issue as these weeks go by, the Lions will be even better as they get all these new people integrated, and it will make them that much more formidable. The other thing I want to point out here is the Lions are playing not only the best quarterback in the NFL, he also happens to be a mobile quarterback too. And we don't have to look very far to know that that has been an Achilles for the Lions defenses in the past. So you could not ask for a more complete test in week one. I mean, this isn't like the University of Michigan playing, was it Eastern Carolina in their first game? I mean, University of Michigan favored by 36 points. This isn't an easy opener. This would be like the University of Michigan opening their season against Ohio State on the road. Not an easy test. And I think it's important to get that understanding out there because Lions could win, the Lions could lose. And we're going to have those naysayers if the Lions lose. But you could not have a more challenging opening game than this one. And it's great to have it because it lets you kind of know where you're at. And it's great that it's not college football. You can lose 3 games and easily make the playoffs in the NFL. You could lose 5 games and make the playoffs in the NFL. So it's a really good test. And I think they're going to learn a lot about themselves. And it's going to give them time to grow throughout the season, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, you're exactly right on that. It's not a cakewalk. It's a great measuring stick. It's great tape to watch. And it's also a great way to, no matter how it turns out, to say, you guys have, who's been reading their press clippings, who has been listening to how good they could be. You're going to find out on Thursday night. And there's going to be situations, that are going to backfire. There's going to be adversity. And how do we overcome that adversity throughout this part of the game? And then we turn it into, how do we turn the adversity that we have and make it not adversity week 2, week 3, and so on throughout the season. So great test, great challenge. And I know Dan Campbell, the staff, and everybody else are dying to get to it because they're tired of talking about it. They want to play it.
So I want to look at last year's game because I just told you how difficult of a test it is the Lions had right now. Last year's home opener, their season opener, it was a home opener as well, was against Philadelphia. And from the beginning, I was not shocked that Philadelphia won the NFC. From the beginning, I thought they were one of the teams to beat. They had a lot of pieces in place and were on the rise. Before that game, I was saying to people, if we win, there's 3 possible outcomes here. If we win this game, watch out, NFL. This could be a crazy good season. And again, this was coming off that 3-win season the year before. I said, if we lose close, you know what? We might have something. And if we get blown out, well, it's going to be a long year.
Right.
So we lost close, 38-35. So I said, all right, we might have something. Now, we then went 1-5 after that, going to 1-6. But then that's when we saw that change, that turnaround. Everyone knows it was 8-2. We ended 9-8. So we did have something. We played with Philadelphia. And I think that was the thing to take away. Even though we lost that game, it didn't mean the sky was falling. It didn't mean that the season was going to be a wash. And I want to point something else out with Kansas City. I thought Kansas City was going to take a step back last year. You brought it up. They lost Tyreek Hill. I was like, I don't know if they're going to win their own division. Everyone was high on Denver and San Diego. I mean, Los Angeles, the Chargers. They're still San Diego to me. And even the Raiders, people were expecting. Kansas City dominated that division. So that means we got to remember, do not discount anything on the Kansas City Chiefs. We had a great test last year. We have an even better test this year. I think we're a better team this year, as most people do, with all those offseason moves we've talked about. So let's get to prediction time. What do you think is going to happen with this game?
Well, I'm going to go back to last year's game against Philadelphia. Philadelphia was up big on us. My nephew was texting me, ripping on me because I told him the Lions were going to go 17-0. Of course, that's the way you have to look at the season. And then after a couple of quick touchdowns, it was crickets. I didn't hear anything from him. And what did the Lions do there is that showed us that we are on the right track because they could have easily folded up with the younger guys when they were down big against Philadelphia. They did not fold. They came back. They fought. Yeah, they ended up losing that game. They ended up going 1-5, 1-6 over those games, and then they turned that season around because they stayed on track. They stayed on Dan Campbell's expectations. They stayed on the coaching staff's expectations and which way they were going. And so I think this is going to be the same type of game. I don't think they'll be down early. I think they'll be fighting throughout the whole game. I think if they do get down early, they're going to come back and make a game of it. And so, what they learned from that and what they learned from last year. Last year was a perfect season for them to start out with the game that they're playing in this season, because he can say, "Remember when?" Dan Campbell can say, "Remember when?" From that season all last year. Remember when we were down to Philadelphia? Remember when we were 1-6? Do you remember when we were 8-2? Do you remember when we went to Green Bay and beat them at Lambeau Field for Aaron Rodgers' last game? I had to put that in there because that's a fun one. But those are things that he can use. They have had a ton of lessons that he can use throughout this game and what this season's going to be like. Is it going to be a 35-31 game? I don't know. I can't predict it. Are they going to beat the point spread? I think they are, because I think we're going to win. But that's what I'm supposed to think. That's what we are supposed to think. We are Lions fans. The Lions are going to be 1-0 after Thursday night. If they're 0-1, they're going to be 1-0 after week 2. So who cares on this situation? Let's go get it. Let's quiet the naysayers, and let's go out and have some fun and learn and get better and work for what our goal is, and that's a division championship, getting into the playoffs, and who knows what happens after we get into the playoffs. So my prediction is people across the country are going to watch this game and say, "Dang, that's 2 good football teams."
That's an excellent, excellent prediction, because let's remember, there is nothing to use as a basis when talking about week 1 games. I mean, with week 2, you can predict by overreacting to everything that happened in week 1.
Right.
But we've got nothing to base things on in the season opener. I think Kansas City is going to move the ball because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see the Lions hold them to some field goals that they might not have normally held them to last year. I think that's going to be a big change. Same quarterbacks, but different teams. But if you go back about 5 years, people have recently talked about the Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes game, Rams, Chiefs. The Rams won that one 54-51. I like bringing that up because the Rams defense did not win that game. And a lot of people talk about Jared Goff being carried by the Rams defense. Todd Gurley had a solid game that day, but he did not carry the team. Cooper Kupp was not playing in that game. Josh Reynolds was, so was Brandon Cooks. But Josh Reynolds and Jared Goff were. I don't think you're going to see 54-51. I think the Chiefs' defense has improved a lot since then. I think the Lions' defense is going to be tested a lot by Patrick Mahomes. I'm gonna put the score somewhere in the 30s. And I said overall, I think the Lions are going to go 11-6 this year. So technically, I can't say they will win every game. Otherwise, I'm going against my thing. So I'm going to do something and kind of cheat this year. I'm going to say they could win and they should win. And I think those are a couple things, because I know you can win or lose every single game. Ask the 49ers week 1 last year against Chicago. So I'm going to say the score is going to probably be in the 30s, and that I really believe the Lions can win this game. I don't think there's a game the Lions cannot win. I think this is their most difficult game on their schedule, but I think they have the ability to win it.
Yep, I agree.
We talk about their record being 11-6, 12-5, or wherever you want to put it in there. But you said, you think they can go 17-0. We know the reality is they're not likely going 17-0. Nobody is. But we see a team that is talented enough that we don't think there's a game on the schedule the Lions cannot win. And that's the reality of it. And that's the change in the team we have now compared to what we've had in the past.
Yeah, well, I agree. And that's one of the things that, again, going back to my coaching day, I talked about 1-0 all the time. We had a ladder. I built this big poster ladder, and we ripped off a step. It was steps to the state championship. It was always the focal point of being 1-0. I never said we're going to win the league. We can't win the league. We don't go 1-0 this week. That's one of the things that, and I know Campbell, those guys are preaching the same thing. What we just talked about, man. They're preaching, hey, listen, it's one game. Yeah, we're playing the freaking Super Bowl champs on Thursday night. Everybody in the country's watching us. Let's go. Man, I can't wait till next Thursday.
Autumn is my favorite time of year. I just love it. It unfortunately means winter's coming next, and that's not something I have too much affinity for, but this time of year is the best. We've got football ready to kick off as well, and there has not been a more anticipated season opener for the Detroit Lions probably in my lifetime. So let's get at it.
Yep, for sure. It's definitely a big one. And again, we don't want to wish it here too quick, because when it's over, we're just gonna all we're gonna be talking about is how the Lions beat the Chiefs. Did I say that? Have a great one.
Thanks so much for joining us, Coach. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to Not the Same Old Lions podcast to get alerts about new episodes. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe as well. Please tell your friends about the show. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt Soltesiak and find all the episodes at notthesameoldlions.com. Until next time, stay gritty, my friends.